So I texted you that. All right, we are back. Government operations and military affairs. We are continuing our introductions to commissioners, secretaries, deputy secretaries, and such. And we now are being joined by Commissioner Knight from the Department of Liquor and Lottery for 101 and some update. Could you please join us, Commissioner?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
again. Nice to see some new faces. So, did you want to do an introduction of your committee?
We will go around one by one just to introduce yourselves as this is, we do have some new faces to the General Assembly and new faces to this room. So I will start with Representative Kat Byron, Chair of the committee, represent Northwest Addison County. Represents Ferrisburg, Hampton, Waltham, Addison, and about a third of New Haven. And we've worked together for some time now.
Yeah.
Various incarnations.
Yes, and the chair is my legislator, so I'm one of his constituents.
Full disclosure.
Full disclosure.
That makes for it. Yes.
Representative Lisa Hango, Franklin 5, which is Richford, Berkshire, Franklin, and Highgate on the northern border with Canada. I live a mile from the border. Also have worked with you for longer than I realized. I realize.
Representative Lucy Boyden, 103. Representative Sandy Pincinel, Bennington 1. Dorset, Danby, Mount Tabor, and Land Grove, and I'm also the Dorset Town Clerk.
Great. Sandy, it's Sandy, Representative Pinsall?
Pincinel, yes.
Pincinel.
Yes.
I'm Michael Morgan. We've met. We know each other, but Grand Isle Chittenden District, which is all of Grand Isle County. So Albert, Isle of Mont, North Hero, Grand Isle, South Hero, and then the western corner of Milton where I reside. Anyway, look forward to hearing from you and working more.
Thank you. Michael.
Hooper Burlington, just for the record, I still have not won the lottery.
Noted.
V.L. Coppin, Windsor 2, so Weathersfield, Cavendish, and Baltimore, and brand new, so
Yes,
didn't meet you till the other day.
exactly. Nice to see you again.
Mary Catherine Stone, Burlington.
Nice to meet you, Representative Stone.
You know me, Jay Hooper, Brookfield, Braintree, Randolph, Granville, and Rochester.
And Shay Waters Evans, Charlotte, in Heinsberg.
Nice to see you
Good to
again.
see you.
So my name is Wendy Knight. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Liquor and Lottery. I have been at the Liquor and Lottery Department since April 2021. I was appointed first as deputy and then I was promoted to the commissioner that December. Prior to that, I was the governor's first tourism and marketing commissioner from 2017 to 2019. I took a 2-year hiatus to help my brother run the family business, which is a car dealership, which he successfully sold, and now he lives in Georgia. So I'm still here. I did something wrong. No, I absolutely love my job, and I'm happy to be here to talk about I was asked to give a little bit of a recap. Before I get into the numbers, I just want to sort of set the stage for the department for your benefit as a refresher to the sophomores and juniors and seniors, but also as to the freshmen. So the Department of Liquor and Lottery runs enterprise funds. So we have the authority by the state to run businesses, and then we call them enterprise funds. We have the Vermont Lottery as an enterprise fund, the Divisional Liquor Control is an enterprise fund. We also now are the regulatory agency for online sports wagering, which we successfully launched in January of this year. And that's what some of the recap I have. So we have a dual mission in that we are generating income for the state. We're generating revenues that turn into general funds or education funds, but we also have a responsibility, very much so on the public safety side. We have 14 sworn law enforcement officers, and so the department is involved with the governor's 10-point public safety plan. We work with Fish and Wildlife, DMV officers, as well as VSP across the enterprise in terms of public safety. So we take our public safety mission very seriously. We promote the responsible sale, consumption, serving of, distilled spirits and also responsible gaming. So we have a partnership with the Department of Mental Health to do the responsible gaming for Vermont Lottery and online sports wagering. That's kind of a general overview of the department. In terms of FY '24, I wanted to give you some high-level statistics as sort of where we ended up. On the Vermont Lottery revenue, which go to the education fund, we ended the fiscal with almost $169 million in lottery sales. So that's tickets generate money, and that money goes to the ed fund, less expensive and long-term liabilities. And so what we transferred to the ed fund was $35 million. On the liquor control side, the liquor control revenues that you see, $102,816,000, that represents the spirits, the sale of spirits at 802 Spirit stores, as well as the revenue that we generate from licensing and any fines and violations for enforcement. I don't have a breakdown of that, but I can get, most of it comes from obviously the sales at the 802 Spirit stores. So Vermont is a control state, meaning that the only place that you can buy distilled spirits are at an 802 Spirit store. And that includes the bars and the restaurants and the ski resorts, and anyone that has a liquor license that wants to sell distilled spirits and fortified wines needs to purchase it through the department. Beer, wine, cider, a new category we created a couple of years ago, which is we, meaning collectively we, the state created a ready-to-drink low alcohol, ready-to-drink spirits beverage. And that is, if this were alcohol, this might be 6%. It's not, it's a soda, right? But these used to be sold, anything that was spirits-based, that was a ready-to-drink canned cocktail was sold through 802 stores, God bless you. And we determined from a policy perspective that didn't make sense. If it was a 6% product, it should be sold where the 6% products are, which are the convenience stores and the grocery stores. So that's why that is part of what the wholesalers are distributing, right? So we have income, the state receives income from those products through a gallonage tax, not through the department. The state receives income from rooms and meals tax, goes directly to the tax department, not from the department. So there's probably, if we contributed, $21 million to the department in terms of spirits, there's probably another 20 million that's generated from the rooms and meals tax. So just give you a little preface on that. Some of the things that I've been talking about for a year is that alcohol consumption is going down nationally. We're seeing that in Vermont. There's a number of reasons for that. The most important takeaway is that the state should plan accordingly, that we will derive less tax revenue from the sale of alcohol. I don't see that trend changing. We started to see it in 2023. Partly it was the floods that we had impacted some of our stores and we saw a blip in sales. But generally what's been happening nationally over the last couple of years is that all across the country, people are consuming less alcohol. Therefore, as a control state, we're selling less alcohol and we're generating less revenue from it. And that's because the younger legal drinking age population is drinking less. They're drinking, some of them don't drink at all. They're choosing low ABV products. They're not buying spirits. In states that have legalized cannabis, we see alcohol consumption is down. Perhaps that's because people are now legally able to partake in cannabis, so they're choosing to do that instead of alcohol. We've heard a number of warnings that alcohol consumption can contribute to certain cancers. I know there's a lot of mixed science on that, but the idea is that people are becoming more health conscious and consuming less alcohol. Inflation plays a role in this. All the products we see are more expensive, whether it's a piece of lumber, whether it's your meal at a restaurant, whether it's alcohol, whether it's a soda. Pretty much inflation is showing that the price of goods are gone up have gone up in the last year or more. And so now we're seeing that people are being more cautious about what they're spending their money on. So there's a number of contributing factors to that. I did put together a slide that just sort of kind of shows you the five-year trend. You'll see that there was a big jump in liquor sales and liquor consumption during COVID. Bars and restaurants were closed, ski resorts were closed, tourists couldn't come here. We were kind of confined to our homes. And as a result, the data shows that people were consuming more alcohol. We've now seen that, reset, right? So we're seeing, not only do we have a post-COVID reset, but we also have those factors I talked about where people are consuming less. So we're starting to see a trend down. We expect that, I think our projection for FY 25 is a further reduction. It's a 1% reduction in revenue. Okay. Any questions about liquor lottery trends, before I get into a little bit of sports wagering?
Just me real quickly. I'm kind of getting a little ahead of myself from the committee here, but we're going to bring representatives in from like the Distillers Association, from brewers, the wine sector and such, and talk to them a little bit about the trends they're seeing. But I don't know if you've heard anything from the manufacturers across the state about where they're at. They're feeling the same trends,
Yes.
but also what is that looking like to not just like their internal Vermont sales, but when they're exporting to other states? How are they feeling about the market right now? Because I know we had a surge of distilleries go and a surge of breweries obviously years ago.
Yeah. And so the conversations that we've had in the fall, we talk with our stakeholders throughout the year, we talk with them. We have quarterly stakeholder meetings with them, the groups, but we then specifically talk with them in the fall about what they're looking for policy changes or legislative changes. And I think you'll hear from that they are feeling the decline in consumption as well. And so a number of them have expressed that to it. We've been talking about ways that we can, again, we're not in the business of promoting businesses. We regulate businesses, but with our Vermont manufacturers, we definitely want to be in a position to, if we can, suggest changes in the regulations or legislations that support small businesses. The governor who I work for obviously is a champion of small businesses. We want to make sure that the small businesses can work, well with the state. And for us, that means not having our regulations be overly burdensome, making sure that licensing process is efficient and not cumbersome.
Representative.
In terms of cost increase, do you chart what inflation has done to the cost of spirits over the last 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, so we get price increases from the suppliers, and then that just gets built into. I can certainly provide that in terms of.
I guess has it eclipsed regular inflation or?
I will find out that answer.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
Doesn't appear to be.
Okay.
Under the wagering.
On to online sports wagering. So this is new. We launched it in January. Essentially what we did is we have 3 operators. We have contracts in place. So we did an RFP. We're not licensing operators like some states are. New Jersey, they license them. What we decided to do was to have a contract in place. So we had an RFP, we had a selection process. We negotiated contracts with the operators. We have 3 of them. DraftKings, FanDuel, Fanatics. We negotiated a revenue share with each of them. That's how the state earns money. And so FanDuel, we have a 33%, DraftKings is 31%, and Fanatics is 31%. So every month we get information from the operators in terms of what was the total handle, which means the total amount that was bet. That's kind of also we call gross receipts. And then we deduct the winning payout. So if you place a bet and you win money, that gets deducted from the adjusted revenue share, adjusted gross revenue share. There's other things that come out of that in terms of voided bets and taxes. So then you end up with adjusted gross wagering revenue, and then we apply the composite percentage of revenue share. And depending on the month, it roughly is 31% or 32%, depending on how many people from FanDuel are betting that month versus DraftKings or Fanatics. And so FY '24, we had projected, again, kind of unknown, we launched it in January, but we had projected based on the information from the operators that we would receive as a state of $33.2 million in revenue. We ended up with $3.5 million in revenue. So now we're building our FY '25 budget, and we had projected, initially, we had projected 7 million, taking 6 months at 3.5. Okay, we're gonna just double that, and we're gonna see 7 million. Some of the things that we've been seeing since the start of the fiscal, which is July, is that the winning payouts are more, and they're consuming more of the handle, which means we have less adjusted gross wagering revenue. So we've been seeing our revenue share not growing at the rate we sort of had thought it might. Again, remember, we have nothing to base on. All we know is what we saw from January to June. So we're just kind of guesstimating what we're seeing from July to December. So based on that, we readjusted, which is why I was in House Appropriations and I'll be in House Ways and Means explaining the reduction a little bit in terms of the projection. We are at calendar year, we are at $6.3 million with revenue share. So we have adjusted for FY '25 to end with $6.1 million. And I'm confident we'll get there. We may get to the $7 million. We don't know what this January through June will be. We launched last January and our revenue was 1.1 million for that 3 weeks of January. It was new, people were excited, pent up demand. We launched during the playoffs, the Super Bowl. We anticipate we'll have a busy January for Super Bowl and the NFL. But remember, you got to remember the Taylor Swift effect. Okay, so that was all new when Taylor Swift was dating that football player and people were excited. So
I just want, you touched on it when we were in appropriations and you briefly touched on it here though. But one of the interesting things I'm finding is that the revenue projection is coming in a little softer because Vermonters are winning. Or Vermont
Correct.
people are playing within the state borders are winning more.
winning more.
So we are actually seeing a reduced estimate accrual, but the players are actually
Winning.
winning better than
Correct.
anticipated.
Correct.
So I could assume, having watched people who gamble take their winnings, that they typically spend those in recreational ways. So is it fair to assess that although there's a reduction there, we may or may not be seeing a bigger bump in sales and use activity, meals and rooms activity?
Absolutely. That would be the expectation, right? Vermonters are winning more by 1% or something. And so that money's going to go somewhere. They're going to maybe pay income taxes on it, depending on how much they wagered or won. They're going to go out to dinner more. They're going to take a vacation. They're going to buy a new rug.
Chicken wings for everybody.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So we would assume that money, the winning payouts would circulate into the economy.
Representative Hooper.
Me again.
Yes.
Do we have a representation of where sports wise most of the bets are going? Like, is it a baseball phenomenon?
Yeah.
As opposed to football? And
Yes.
I don't recall hearing when we talked about this authorization wise that we are basically supporting the business by allowing them to net wins and losses, in terms of our portion of is that 100% or do we?
No, so the way it works, right, like we are giving the operators permission
Yeah,
to come into the state and allow people in the state to use their apps. In exchange for that, we have said, we want some of your revenue, your net revenue. And that's the that's the revenue share that we negotiated. So, correct. So that's the bargain.
It's
right?
net gain and loss only or operating? How much goes into the net computation?
So the way it's calculated is you have the gross receipts, the total number of dollars that were bet. You take the dollars that were won, the dollar value of the winning payouts. Then you take the voided bets, less the voided bets, and less any federal income tax or tax. Then that's your adjusted gross sports wagering revenue, and then you apply that revenue share. So in the case of FanDuel, that adjusted gross wagering revenue, we have 33% revenue share. So the state earns 33% and FanDuel earns 27%.
And where do we compute, as far as the state budget goes, the money that goes to the
And then the,
health department for the anti?
so
Gambling.
that's something, so the revenue share goes into the general fund. So the department from online sports wagering, we transfer that into the general fund. Less our expenses, there's also there was an operator fee that's applied every 3 years. So each operator pays, I think it was $550,000. And so every year, the department allocates $250,000 out of sports wagering for the Department of Mental Health to administer their responsible gaming program. In addition, the department takes $250,000 from Vermont Lottery, transfers it to Department of Mental Health, so they have a combined problem gambling fund of $500,000 in which to develop the problem gambling and the responsible gaming infrastructure. And I can talk more about that when we talk about the problem gambling report that we're required to send, which I sent last night. And they're building infrastructure. So the thing that I remind people is this year is a year of building. This is the benchmark. So we can see the benchmarks for responsible gaming. We can see the benchmarks for how many people are calling and how many people are taking advantage of the operators' tools for responsible gaming. We can see where we are in terms of revenue. It won't be until this month that we can start to have comparative data. So this month, for example, we'd be able to see if we generated $1.1 million in revenue last January, what will we see this year? Now, remember, the hotline wasn't set up in January, it wasn't set up immediately. So I think it's going to be the spring or the summer before we can start to see comparative data in terms of responsible gaming and problem gaming.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And I just wanted to throw like one little footnote on, you said hotline. Now, previous to this restructuring and new funding inflows to problem gaming, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, the state was only budgeting about less than $75,000 a year.
No, it was $200,000. We had an arrangement with the Howard
Okay, so
Center.
that had gone up. I remember when I first started
Yeah.
thinking this was only like 75,000.
And that was strictly for Vermont Lottery.
Correct. Okay.
And that was, remember, that was a very reactive arrangement. So someone had to have called into the Howard Center to say, I think I have a problem. What kind of services do you have? There was no promotion, if you will. There was no, we have an 800 number, it's responsible gaming month, it's problem gambling education month. So since we have passed sports wagering and we've combined the responsible gaming effort, both the Department of Liquor and Lottery and the Department of Mental Health, we connect on a weekly basis, we have regular meetings, and then we are sharing much more proactively the resources that are available. And that's good, because we want Vermonters to know what are the triggers, what are the warnings of that you might have a problem, and then where you might be able to get resources for that. So the fact that we're seeing calls, people, taking advantage of those tools is good. It means that they're seeking help. You don't want people to suffer in silence, thinking that there aren't any resources or having any stigma attached to that. We want people to reach out if they have a need.
Any questions from the table before we move on to the next page bucket?
We talked a little bit about the responsible gaming. So the component of that is the Department of Mental Health. They work with the players. They set up the responsible gaming resources for players. And then the Department of Liquor and Lottery, which is the regulatory body that oversees the operators. We work with the operators on their responsible gaming piece of that. You'll see a little bit here, some of the call volumes that we saw. A lot of these calls, the more robust bucket happens to be the calls that people got the wrong number, or they hang up, or they want to know what the odds are for Vermont Lottery, which is, so they want to know what the winning numbers are. So we'll obviously have more data to present as the months go by. And then the self-exclusion program, we've seen a few people take advantage of that as well, where they can say, you know what, I've got a problem. I just need to like not have any access to this. And I'm going to be on that self-exclusion list for a year or 5 years or a lifetime. And we've had 4 individuals that signed up for that. Now, if you're in Vermont and you're a Vermonter and you sign up for the self-exclusion list for FanDuel, say I have a FanDuel account, you will then, there's a policy of FanDuel, you will not be able to play anywhere that FanDuel operates. So if I live in Massachusetts and I have a FanDuel account and I have a second home in Ludlow, and I've already signed up for the self-exclusion list, I will not be able to play in Vermont because of those policies. So that's important to remember as well.
Representative Cooper.
Yeah.
None of the providers have a mechanism or a deal with us where if somebody habitually gets way in debt, they throw up a flag.
Oh, there are plenty of safeguards on the app in terms of not being able to overextend yourself, right? So that's why there's deposit limits. There's the number of bet limits. There's a number of safeguards on the phone, right? You can impose them yourself, but also because the data is available because it's done on the phone, the operator has the ability to shut down accounts and pause accounts.
Maybe we should have a Super Bowl weekend live demonstration here.
I do like a good interactive demonstration.
I wouldn't be able to do that because as a member of the Department
Yeah,
of.
you actually cannot engage.
You're not allowed to engage in online sports betting. So maybe you'll get an operator to come.
Sure, we can find somebody from a wagering association that can help you out.
Yeah.
Representatives, yes.
Yes. Okay, so some of the data is a little nuanced on the operator responsible gaming tool. It just gives you a sense of, they have age limits that tell you, you know, within a certain category, what people are valuing themselves to in terms of deposit limits or time limits or wager size limits. The thing that I will mention about this is that these numbers are not individuals. They are usage. So if I avail myself of some of these tools 10 times, it's one person, me, but the count is going to show 10. The other thing that I was told is if I am an out-of-state resident, again, I'm that resident that lives in Massachusetts, and I come up to my second home in Ludlow, and I want to use a Vermont account, and I sign on to the Vermont terms and conditions, then I'm being tracked as using those tools, even if I'm back in Massachusetts. Until that tool gets turned off, it will show up in Massachusetts and Vermont. So just caveats about some of these numbers. Any questions about? How are we doing on timing? Because I'm supposed to be in another committee. I just realized right now.
What time do you need to remove yourself?
I'm supposed to be in Senate Economic Development at 11. Are we at 11?
It's 11:01.
It's, you have to go, yeah, you're there.
Okay.
You gotta go.
So I would say that you invite me back anytime and I'm happy to talk about details. I haven't had a chance to talk about priorities. Our policy priority, our legislative priority this year is online lottery, iLottery. And I have lots more information to talk about what that is and what it's not and how it pertains to retail and our subscription service. So I'm happy to come back and talk about iLottery.
All right, sounds good. We will reschedule you, and yes, please go join our colleagues down at Senate Economic. We will see you later,
Thank you so much.
of course.
Good day.
All right, that was, obviously good introductory content between those two offices and departments. At the moment, we have an afternoon that is two more introductions, one with our state auditor, Doug Hoffer, that will be remote. We're going to do some more work on the Bennington 1 election. That's at 1:30. Hopefully we'll be able to get that piece done roughly by 2:15. I'd like to take a break for a little bit before we go into the introduction with the Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs. They have a new executive director, but he's been an employee there for a while and has served in other capacities in state government. So he is not a stranger to this room or veteran members. So with that, I'm going to break us a little early so we can get into our emails and take a look perhaps at some of these reports. January 15th, as new members have realized, is a big report dump day. So Autumn has been working diligently to update that particular page on our committee website. So feel free to graze on that. But really start wrapping your head around some of the Bennington 1 testimony that we're gonna have. And Autumn, did you update that witness list yet? Yeah, cool. We have an updated witness list on that, so you'll be able to see who's coming in. With that, take us off. We are gonna break